Good evening, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is David Okun. I'm talking about the cost of living. I've been talking about the cost of living for 10 months now. Since last year in December, my channel was created in 2012, but nothing was done. No work was done. The only work began last year, a year ago. We are slow. We are still a small channel. Thank you everybody who have been with us, helping us to grow, subscribing to my channel and sharing with family and friends. We are talking about Africa. We are linking Africa to the cost of living, and if you watch this video, it's going to be number 5, the 5th part. Watch the rest of the videos, the previous videos on Africa, and we have discussed different aspects of life in Africa. We are focusing on the cost of living. In the process of doing so, we are examining different factors as to what really caused the cause of the cost of living around the world, not just in Africa. But I have also said in the other video, I will repeat it here, that Africa suffers the most as a continent. They suffer the most of the cost of living crisis, and this is because Africa is the poorest continent in the world. Africa potentially is the richest continent in the world, but because of many factors, Africa now languishes behind, and poverty is a very dangerous aspect of our modern world, and it is created by capitalism, which fail to provide for the many, only providing wealth for the few. And this is consistent with government policy on capitalism, especially giving a free hand to the super rich to create wealth for themselves. And the irony is that the poor people, who are the majority, over 90% of the global population, work for the few who are actually the super rich. The under capitalism, workers are actually slaves in practice, although they may not say it in law or in formal languages or policy, but as a matter of reality, working for a living is a form of slavery. If you work for a living, you are working as of necessity. Rich people who are millionaires and multimillionaires do not have to work for a living. They work by choice, that is, if they work at all, and their focus is actually to create wealth for themselves. And that's why the extreme form of capitalism will create a situation like the cost of living crisis. I have said this before, I say it again over and over. And people need to realize this, and it is not going to stop unless the government, those in power within the government and within the big businesses, those entrepreneurs who are multimillionaires like Arnold Bernard of France, who is on record as being the richest on earth, in his worth in hundreds of billions of US dollars. And Jeff Bezos, I think, Elon Musk, I think, number 2, Jeff Bezos number 3, and the rest like Bill Gates and all these other multi-billionaires around the world, and the multi-millionaires. These have done very well under capitalism. Wealth is concentrating more and more into the richer. The richer you are, the richer you are going to. The richer you are, the richer you're going to get going forward. The reason the government should intervene in the economy to moderate capitalism is so that people who are locked up in poverty, who are absolutely unable, they are totally incapacitated to get out of poverty. This category of people around the world, especially in Africa, should be supported by the state in Africa, states elsewhere in the world, to get them out of poverty, at least, so that they can find their ways in the world as normal people who have been capacitated to function within a modern economy, with the hope that perhaps some of them, perhaps more of them, will access wealth. My reasoning have also always been that with technology, the rest of the population of the world will be able to access wealth piecemeal, because if technology matures beyond what we now have, technology which is a certainty, technological development which is a certainty to happen in the future, will create products and services free of charge and no extra cost. And that it also means that when technology when it does that, it is going to create enough wealth for everyone. That means everyone with the help of technology and good economic and cultural management of society. And when I say cultural management, I mean people are living peacefully. Today we are looking at news coming from the Middle East, very disturbing. Israel is fighting with Hamas, with Gaza, and I think there's going to be a lot of killing. There's going to be a lot of death of innocent civilians. And this is actually a failure of our culture as humanity. And like I said elsewhere, I said for us to achieve real peace and happiness in the future, we as a society, especially the leaders, should support continents of the world, including Africa, to learn culture, human culture. Culture means valuing humanity, putting humanity first over anything else, over wealth, over environmental protection, over every other issue. Humanity should come first. At the moment, what comes first is wealth, and everything else now comes first, except humanity. Humanity probably at the bottom of the pile of priority of the world. This is wrong. This is a source of war and violence, and we need peace, we need love, we need prosperity, we need to be happy. And that is the purpose of our life on earth, and we can do that through education, through changing the way we think culturally, and I already suggested culture means valuing humanity first, and over and above anything else, because everything else is for humans is not everything else. Humans are here to utilize what is available in terms of the world's natural resources, the environment. We need to look after the world. We need to create wealth in order to look after humanity. If this cultural thinking arises to dominate our thinking, then we become good humans. Good humans should be in power to replace humans who do not understand the value of humanity, who abuse humanity, who make humans slaves, who persecute people, who generate warfare and violence. If we don't change, we are going to, as a species, we are going to go extinct within maybe 500 years. This is from the top of my head. Leave a comment below and subscribe if you haven't subscribed to this channel. And like I was explaining about capitalism, the government needs to intervene to actually control poverty, and the cost of living is happening because the government has shut down the public sector and is proceeding to close down the entire public sector. These must be reversed now, or there are going to be more troubles with 90%, over 90% of people are going to live in poverty. They're going to be trapped in poverty. And people who still enjoy some wealth, some modicum of wealth, the middle class especially of the world, will lose their jobs because technology is coming to take their jobs. And if the government fails to strengthen the public sector, then the majority of the population will be excluded because of technology taking away work. Right now, employment is the main source of income for the 90% of the population who work and who don't work. And those who don't work in the developed world get something called benefit, welfare benefit. If this does not happen, it does not exist in Africa. My suggestion to the IMF and the World Bank and the developed rich world is to support Africa to develop a new system of welfare state for African population who suffer the worst form of violence, the worst form of poverty. The exploitation of Africa by the developed world, milking Africa of its natural resources and creating wars and violence to keep Africa willfully in power should stop. It's a form of evil, it's ignorant, it's dangerous, it's going to maintain warfare. And if those who are rulers, who are wealthy, who are in power, think poor people are merely going to walk away and they are going to do whatever they like with poor people, then they have something else. Because poor people are not going nowhere. They're the majority. And no amount of trying to destroy them will succeed, because we are humans. We don't just walk away quietly. We are here to stay. And if the rich people want peace, they should change now their cultural mentality. If you are rich, learn to give to the poor. And the idea of employment may work, but private businesses do not create jobs. They are only there to make money. And if they create jobs, they don't pay enough. They don't pay enough to get workers out of poverty. They are corrupt. They are only thinking. When I say corruption, I mean they don't think about humans. They don't steal money, but they are so ruthless. They are actually so bankrupt. They are really bad. They are not. They are really bad humans. They are very, very bad people. they are so brutal. They behave like wild animals, worse than wild animals, because they only think about is money. I don't despise wealth. I don't despise the wealthy people, and they're doing a lot of good things. In spite of themselves, in spite of their cultural ignorance. Not all of them, but the majority of them are culturally totally bankrupt. And if you are culturally bankrupt, then you produce a kind of insanity which is deprives you of your humanity. And these people are so worthless culturally that these multimillionaires and multi-billionaires are so culturally corrupted that they now behave worse than anything we have seen on Earth. They are probably behaving now like some creatures from the outer space, maybe some funny looking, funny behaving. They look like humans. They're good looking because humans are good looking, but definitely inside they are as ugly as some funny looking aliens from outer space, and we don't need them on Earth. Even if they're human, I think they should be exported somewhere else. Elon Musk is trying to create some some worlds where people can live in outer space. Maybe these funny multi-billionaires and multi-millionaires should be. I mean, I don't know what Elon Musk is going to do with the rest of multi-billionaires and multi-millionaires. Maybe they're planning to leave the planet Earth. And if so, then let them go to the other space, and behave there like some strange, creatures, maybe aliens, or although they look like humans, because these people are afraid to learn culture. And my invitation to Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and all these super rich of the world: turn around and start learning culture, human value, and put humanity as a priority. It is going to make you a happy man. It's going to make people, rich people like Oprah Winfrey, Rihanna, Beyonce. These are actually multi-billionaires, and they are female, and there are others. There are so many women multi-billionaires in the developed world and also in Africa. And there are so many billionaires in Africa today. Some of the wealthiest people are in Africa. They are worth billions, and tens, or even perhaps also hundreds of billions of US dollars. These people need to learn culture and from return away from being animals to being human in terms of the content of your character, if you have any left. And this is a serious matter, and people should really pay attention, especially people who are wealthy and those who are in government. You need to learn your culture. There are actually politicians on Earth today who behave totally like worse than wild animals, because culturally they're so bankrupt. They don't really value humanity. The only thing about it is wealth and power. What kind of human being do you think you are? And if you have no business, shut up and let true humans take over power to bring peace. And there will be no peace unless the cultural issue is resolved. And unless people who are true humans begin to intervene in the economy of under capitalism, to try and moderate capitalism, to try and actually work with private businesses, especially big corporations, which are actually creating wealth on earth. And wealth is a good thing, but it has to be managed peacefully. And there is no point using wealth as lethal weapons to destroy humanity. And if we don't change culturally, we are clearly going to go extinct as a species. We can go extinct as early as 100 years, 200 years time. That is not necessary, and the suffering today is utterly unnecessary. If people listen, whether you understand what is being said or not, if you are in power, start changing your attitude, start talking with government, negotiate policies to direct the rest of the world to support people who are poor in Africa, people who are poor in Europe, America, in the developed world, and the rest of the places. One of the things we need to eradicate food poverty within 10 years, food and energy poverty. Within 10 years, we need access to clean water at no extra cost for the 90% of the population who work for living. And then we need to look at housing, which is actually a major component of cost anywhere in the world, including in Africa. Africa, if you see where they live, especially in squalor, in the suburb, it really, I mean, if you see where poor African live around town, around big cities, in slums, in squalors, you will be so shocked. Especially if you are coming from the developed world. We talk of poverty in the developed world. The poverty in Africa is so shocking that if people, especially young people, go there, they will be surprised how poor Africa is. And at the same time, if you go to Africa and meet rich people, multi-millionaires and multi-billionaires, you will be very, very surprised how wealthy they are. They live like gods. They live like, think of anybody living in the best of mansions. You find them in Africa. And these are actually not white people, they are black people, they are Africans and Africans and Africans. They live alongside some of the poorest communities. That is evil. I mean, what kind of person can do that? I mean, what kind of culture are we talking about? If we are really human, we cannot do that. And this is to change, otherwise we are going to commit suicide. As societies, we are going to commit mass suicide. Multimillionaires and multi-billionaires are going to create the extinction of humanity by poverty. Is going to kill everybody. The poor will die first. The 95% will die first, and the 15% remaining will also die, because this is the product of violence. Violence knows no boundary, and we need to change to survive. We cannot be deluded, especially if you're rich. You think you're going to ignore humanity, and somehow if humanity perish, you are going to survive. You will not survive. There's nowhere to run. This is our world, and we are going to destroy it or rebuild it to live in it. The choice is ours. Every good humanity, every good member of the human community should stand up for what is right. If you're in government, you have a lot of responsibility. The power given to you to run the country is not given to you in vain. It is given to you to bring peace. And the cost of living in Africa, which is the worst anywhere else in the world, is evidence of failure of the government in Africa. We have been looking at what do you call it? Africa Union. Africa Union is the building of an African country within this continent. Africa continent is turning into an African country, one country, where every country in Africa is going to be under one government in Africa, one citizenship, one passport. That is the vision. It's a federated system, and it is part of the global economic system. It's part of something called globalization. And when we finish in Africa to build it into one world, into one continent, where every African will have one African citizenship, one passport, and African will actually open up its borders to all the other African nations, and you will be traveling in Africa with one passport. And now we are developing this organization in West Africa, East Africa, Central Africa, North and South Africa. There are units which are actually a unit of federation, but that is the first phase. Going forward, we are going to unite the entire Africa so that Africa become one continent, continent without border. Again, we will take Africa and combine Africa with the rest of the globe in Europe, America, in Asia, and in somewhere called Oceania, wherever that is. All these other continents will come together into a global big family, which is going to be good. It's going to bring peace, potentially it's going to eradicate poverty, and it's going to, with capitalism and the market economic system, and with the development of democracy, there should be peace, prosperity, and global stability. But if we don't learn our culture, our efforts on the developmental front is going to be all in vain. We are doing well on the developmental front of our progress. Where we are failing is our cultural front of our progress. Our culture is about prioritizing humanity and valuing humanity over and above any other creature, any other concern, whether be it wealth, whether be it health, or whatever you want to call them. Humanity must be number one priority, and poverty is evidence that we are neglecting humanity. 95% of the population will live in poverty. The poor people who think they are rich or do not really feel poverty, this is mainly because we have created under capitalism a system of credit. Credit is a form of shadow finance. It's a form of shadow wealth. It's a form of shadow operation. It should not be there. The system of credit should be shut down, because what credit does, what the credit system does, it actually masks out the incident of poverty. People who are now poor, who are in most of them the middle class, are totally convinced they are doing well. You don't do well under capitalism if you are not a multimillionaire, and if you are not a multimillionaire, and even if you are a multimillionaire or a multibillionaire, don't think that your wealth is going to remain forever, because capitalism and the market economic system is so volatile. The law there is one of is you operating the law of the jungle, and you see dog eating dog, cat eating cat. It's like a jungle, the law of the jungle, survival of the fittest. The market economic system is vicious, and only the fittest actually survive in the jungle of capitalism under the market economic system. And people need to be really clear about this. The level or the potential, or even the reality of violence under capitalism in the market economy is actually jungle in its context. And if you are not powerful, you don't survive. And that is why people who are with money are there in it to actually survive, because they know that under the brutal market economic system, which resembles the jungle, only the fittest actually survive. And the fittest are actually the multi-millionaires and the multi-billionaires in the marketplace, people who own so much wealth that they do not know what to do with it. And that is actually poor commentary on what is otherwise a modern system of civilization and living under a civil economic system. Because the jungle, or rather the market without law, without culture, without good custom, is a pure jungle. It's a very dangerous place, and people live like wild animals in the marketplace, and we cannot really allow that to happen. And it is a rescue operation for the rest of the world to make sure there is orderliness in the marketplace, and that is the function of the government to moderate the marketplace, which is otherwise would be a jungle. And because of the attitude of some extremist right-wing politicians within Europe, within America, and in Africa, these are actually monsters, whether they know it or not. They have become extreme on the right wing. All they think about is wealth and power, and without regard to any sense of morality, humanity, and this is out of control. And it's about time now for us to intervene immediately if you are still human, especially if you are in power, in government, in business, in big business, and if you are multi-billionaires and you are still human. Do your best to intervene now to join the conversation. We need to rescue the world from the hand of, I think they should be called terrorists. If you are rich, if you are multi-billionaire and you don't care about people at all, then you are a terrorist. You fit that description because you are a total risk. You are so dangerous that the world, if they don't get rid of you, if they don't really arrest you and put you in prison, you are going to destroy the world in a matter of 10, 20, or even 50 years. And the cost of living is now already destroying lives. And some people now suffering the cost of living may never recover financially. And if in the jungle of the market economy you don't have money, you are a sitting duck. You are going to be eaten alive by multi-billionaires and multi-billionaires. And this is no way to live in a human community. We are supposed to be civil. Our civility is actually measured by how we treat other humans, especially if you are in a position of power and authority. How you treat the poor, how you treat the 95% of the population determine your humanity or non-humanity. We cannot allow non-humanity to be in power if we want to survive. This is a survival strategy. This is a moment where every voice, every humanity, if you are listening to this, make sure you begin to think seriously. This violence, this risk, this predicament is not going away. The cost of living is here to stay as a crisis, and it is going to destroy so many people financially. In the developed world where I live in Britain, people are now committing suicide because of poverty. Young people are actually, statistically, young people are now committing suicide, and I would suspect because they are so lost. There is no prospect for employment because the economy is shutting down. And the government is shutting down the public sector, selling what is left to the super rich, the multi-billionaires, who are also shutting it down. They're going to shut it down because these organizations do not make profit. That means going forward, small and medium businesses will be destroyed. We are going to remain with big corporations, which will also shut down when technology comes. When technology comes to replace the economy, to produce wealth, then we will potentially have access to wealth. But if there is cultural violence, there is social violence, there is global violence because of cultural failure. Anything we get, including wealth, including technology, is going to be weaponized to destroy humanity. And this point is extremely important. I've been repeating it over and over. I am talking about Africa now, and the credit system allow people who otherwise realize their status to be poor, to be deluded. They are living in the shadow because credit system is a shadow. People borrow to buy houses, they borrow to buy cars, expensive cars, they borrow to furnish their homes, they borrow to buy food, they borrow to pay for medication, they borrow for transport, they borrow money to take their children to school and to universities. So there is borrowing, there is lending, and this is wrong. It should stop, it should shut down. The credit economy globally should shut down. We are using our society recklessly. Our resources are going to waste. We are very dangerous people because we have failed to take a look at our lives, to reintegrate our knowledge, our thinking within the cultural economic framework, valuing humanity, having respect for yourself, having respect for other people, having respect for your wealth, having for your wealth and for your health, having respect for the health of the people, whether they are rich, whether they are poor, whether they are young, old, disabled, straight, gay, everyone should be given the same respect. And that is the cultural proficiency, the cultural integrity we are looking for. And let us continue from there. That is a good opening, so pay attention to you. Today we are going to look at Africa's demographics. And leave a comment below if you know what demography is. And we're going to look about Africa genetic history, the history, genetic, the demographic of Africa. We are going to look at the genetic history of Africa. We are going to look at child marriage in Africa, and we are also going to look at the list of African countries' population and list African countries by life expectancy. How long do we live in Africa? Population of the total population, proportion of total African population by country. We are looking at Nigeria, 15.38% of the population. They are the most numerous people in Africa. Nigeria has the largest population, 15.38%, followed by Ethiopia, 8.37%. And followed by Egypt, 7.65%, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, 6.57%, and we have Tanzania, 4.55%, we have South Africa, 4.47%, Kenya, 3.88%, Uganda is 3.38%, and we have Algeria at 3.36%, others, we have 42.39%. This is actually the demographic of Africa. Africa's population has rapidly increased over the last 40 years, and it consequently are relatively young. So we have so many young people in Africa, perhaps because Africa produces so many children. If you are a mother with a husband, with a father, produces up to 10 people, children. If you produce 10 children in a family, then the firstborn is almost as old as the father, and the last born is almost as young, the same age as the child of the firstborn. It's a common occurrence in our African communities and families, and it is quite exciting. Africans are doing the right thing for the world, produce as many children as possible. The world is enough, there is enough resources, technology is being developed, and technology should be able to support women, especially medical technology, to support pregnant women, so that the rate of maternal mortality due to labor, due to birth crisis should reduce. The birth pain should also reduce with medical technology, and that should be the direction of policy and of functioning within the global economy, especially in Africa and obviously the rest of the world. And let us look at this information. And in some Asian African states, more than half of the population is under 25 years of age. The total number of people in Africa increased from 229 million in 1950 to 630 million in the 1990s. As of 2021, the population of Africa is estimated at 1.4 billion. Africa's population, our total population surpassing other continents, is fairly recent. African population surpassed Europe in the 1990s, while the Americas was overtaken sometime around the year 2000. Africa's rapid population growth is expected to overtake the only two nations currently larger than its population at roughly the same time, India and China. China's 1.4 billion people each will swap ranking around the year 2022. It's about now. So Africa is increasing in number, which is a good report. The more the merrier. Africa needs the human power, the manpower, the woman power to run the continent of Africa, the economy of Africa. Because if you're poor in wealth, you should be rich in people. And this is consistent with my invitation to revisit our cultural roots and valuing humanity, putting value on humanity, but also supporting the population of Africa with technology, science, engineering, along the planes of developments in medicine, education, research, science, engineering, technology, agriculture. And all these are doable now because we are very advanced globe. Africa is accessing a lot of advancement. Young people can now access technology. They can be inventors. They can access wealth and actually do well in life. But all this avails to nothing if we don't respect humanity. Our wealth will go to ruins. We will use it to destroy Africa. We need to learn our culture, our respecting humanity, of valuing humanity. I repeat this over and over because it is critical that we realize to understand what is involved in these situations. This increase in number of babies born in Africa compared to the rest of the world is expected to reach approximately 37% in the year 2050, while the 1990s Sub-Saharan Africa accounted for only 16% of the world's births. The total fertility rate children per woman for Sub-Saharan Africa is 4.7 as of 2018, the highest in the world. All countries in Sub-Saharan Africa TFR average number of children above replacement level in 2019 and accounted for 27.1% of global childbirth, live birth. In 2021, Sub-Saharan Africa accounted for 29% of global births. Africa increasing in number is a good idea because if we don't have wealth, we may as well have people to remobilize our continent to work with our hands to get out of poverty ourselves. Speakers of Bantu languages, part of the Niger-Congo family, are the majority in southern, central, and southeastern Africa. The Bantu-speaking peoples from Sahel progressively expanded over most of sub-Saharan Africa. But there are also several Nilotic groups. So about that, there are also several Nilotic groups in South Sudan and in East Africa. The mixed Swahili people of the Swahili coast and a few remaining indigenous Khoisan, San, or the Bushmen, and the Pygmies people, Pygmy peoples in Southern and Central Africa, respectively. Bantu-speaking Africans also predominate in Gabon and Equatorial Guinea and are found in parts of southern Cameroon. In the Kalahari Desert of southern Africa, the distinct people known as the Bushmen, also the San, closely related to but distinct from the Hottentots, have long been present. This is demography of Africa. The San are physically distinct from other Africans and are the indigenous people of southern Africa. And Bantu branches, though some are and the Pygmies are the pre-Bantu indigenous people of Central Africa. The peoples of West Africa primarily speak Niger-Congo languages belonging mostly to its non-Bantu branches, though some Nilo-Saharan and Afro-Asiatic speaking groups are also found. The Niger-Congo speaking Yoruba, Igbo, Fulani, Akan, the Wolof ethnic groups are the largest and most influential. In the Central Sahara, Mandinka and the Mandinka and the Mande groups are most significant. Chadic-speaking groups, including the Awosha, are found in more northerly parts of the region nearest to the Sahara. The Nilo-Saharan communities such as the Songhai, Kanuri, the Zama, and are found in the southeastern part of West Africa, bordering Central Africa. We're looking at Africa. We are linking Africa to the cost of living crisis. We are looking at every aspect or element of resources in Africa and producing commentary to awaken our awareness to the fact of poverty in Africa as being the central cause of the cost of living crisis in Africa. And this is actually consistent with the global state of affairs, as you can see in the rest of my video. If you are watching this video, watch this video in conjunction with the rest of my video on Africa and the cost of living crisis, and also the rest of other videos which are actually being illustrated in different ways, like the causes and the incidences of the cost of living crisis. We are looking at the map of Africa, indicating Human Development Index in 2018. We are 0.800 to 0.8845. These are different areas in variation, ranging from that figure 0.800 to 0.849 to 0.449 from the highest areas of development to the lowest. As you can see in different parts of Africa, the peoples of North Africa consist of three main indigenous groups: Berbers in the northwest, Egyptians in the northeast, the Nilo-Saharan speaking peoples in the east. The Arabs who arrived in the 7th century CE introduced the Arabic language and Islam to the North Africa. The Semitic Phoenician who founded Carthage and the Ixos, the Indo-Iranian Hellenes, the Indo-Europeans speak Greek, Romans, and the Vandals settled in North Africa as well. We are talking in short about the Arabic speakers in North Africa. They are described as a Semitic, which is actually a group of human ethnicities in Africa and the rest of the world. So we are talking of a significant Berber communities which remain within Morocco and Algeria in the 21st century, while to a lesser extent Berber speakers are also present in some regions of Tunisia and Libya. We're talking about Arab and people who are not entirely black. They are whitish, and I've actually said elsewhere that whenever you see somebody who is neither white or black, it means these are actually white people who intermarried with people, with black people. No matter how you pronounce them, how you describe them, they are a mixture of black people and white people. I know that because it is in evidence at the current age, where if a white man produce a child with a black person, they produce a mixed race, and there are three different categories of human colors: black, mixed, and white. So the Berber-speaking Tuareg, and other often nomadic peoples are the principal inhabitants of the Saharan interior of North Africa. In Mauritania, there is a small but near extinct Berber community in the north and Niger, Congo. Speaking peoples in the south, though in both regions Arabic and Arab culture predominates. In Sudan, although Arabic and Arab culture predominate, it is mostly inhabited by groups that originally originally speak, originally people who are actually originally spoke Nilo-Saharan, such as the Nubian, the Fu, the Masalit, the Zagawa, who are over the century, are variously intermixed with migrants from the Arabian Peninsula. Small communities of Afro-Asiatic speaking Beja nomads can also be found in Egypt and Sudan. In the Horn of Africa, some Ethiopian and Eritrean groups like the Amara and the Tigrayans, collectively known as the Abesha, speak languages from the Semitic branch of the Afro-Asiatic language family, while the Oromo and the Somali speak languages from the Cushitic branch of the Afro-Asiatic. Prior to the decolonization movement of the post-World War II era, Europeans were presented in every part of Africa. Decolonization during the 1960s and the 1970s often resulted in the mass immigration of white settlers, especially to Algeria, from Algeria and Morocco, 1.6 million peers north in North Africa, Kenya, Congo, Rhodesia, Mozambique, and Angola. Between 1975 and 1977, over a million colonials returned to Portugal alone. Nevertheless, white Africans remain an important minority in many African states, particularly Zimbabwe, Namibia, Reunion, and South Africa. Dutch and British diasporas represented the largest communities of European ancestry on the continent today. European colonization also brought sizable groups of Asians, particularly from the Indian subcontinent, to the British colonies. Large Indian communities are found in South Africa, and smaller ones are present in Kenya, Tanzania, and some other southern and southeastern African countries. Large Indian community in Uganda was expelled by the dictator Idi Amin in 1972, though many have since returned. The islands of the Indian Ocean are also populated primarily by people of Asian origin, often mixed with the Africans and Europeans. The Malagasy people of Madagascar and Austronesian people, but those along the coast are generally mixed with Bantu, Arab, India, and the European origins. Malay and Indian ancestry are also important component in the Congo, in the group of people known as South Africa, as Cape Colored, people with origin in two or more races and continents. During the 20th century, small but economically important communities of Lebanese and Chinese have also developed in larger coastal cities of West and East Africa, respectively. Alternative estimates of African population zero to 2018 AD in thousands, Madison and others, University of Groningen. We are looking at the demography of Africa, shares of Africa and world population, 0 to 2080 percentage of world total. The Madison and other University of Groningen. So there are statistics which you can look at, and we are going to look at the religion of Africa. And we have Christianity, which is actually the main, Islam, Hinduism, and then native religion in Africa. So we have the religious distribution in Africa, also divination. While Africans profess a wide variety of religious beliefs, the majority of the people respect African religions and parts of them. However, the informal surveys and census, most people will identify with more religions than came from outside the continent, mainly through colonization. There are several reasons for this, the main one being the colonial idea that African religious beliefs and practices are not good enough. Religious beliefs and studies and statistics on religious affiliation are difficult to come by since they are often a sensitive topic for governments with mixed religious populations. According to the World Book Encyclopedia, Islam and Christianity are the two largest religions in Africa. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, 45% of the population are Christian, 40% are Muslim, and 10% follow the traditional religion. A small number of Africans are Hindu, Buddhist, Confucianist, Baha'i, or Jewish. And there is also a minority of people in Africa who are irreligious. Let us look at the languages of Africa, writing system of Africa, and indigenous writing systems. And if you watch the rest of my video opening this discussion in the other parts of the video, I said the modern day civilization began in Egypt, in Africa, in North Africa. And it, in many ways, many historians now are claiming those civilizations to have been black civilization. It's not really Arab, it's not really white, it is black. So black people of the world, especially the ones in Africa, are responsible for modern day civilization, including writing and mathematics. Learning, which is actually the root of modern civilization, has its root in mathematics and language. These were invented in Egypt by black people, and if Egyptian civilization, as I suspect, as increasing evidence point to that the Egyptian civilization was a black African civilization which produced what is now modern civilization. So when we talk about education, Africa is the author of modern learning and of modern power and modern economy. Everything the world has today, they got it from Africa, including the people of the world. Africa is also the cradle of humanity. The first modern humans originated in East Africa, and so the world should have to be on respect for Africa as being their homeland in terms of humanity, but also in terms of development, in terms of civilization, knowledge, engineering, technology, science. Africa is to be respected. By most estimates, well over 1,000 languages. UNESCO has estimated around 2,000 languages are spoken in Africa. Africa is diverse, and so it finds richness in people and in diversity. We are experts in multiculturalism in Africa, and the world who are actually, if they are interested, including Africa, if we are interested in peace, it is our opportunity to learn and copy Africa, how to live together in more harmonious way. Africa is not a perfect continent. Africa has gone through a lot of turmoil. There are a lot of human wrong happening now, and then in the past in Africa, we are all in this together in Africa and in other continents to learn the cultural economy, which is prioritizing humanity, changing the way education works, and learning how to prioritize humanity, respecting people, respecting yourself, respecting other people, respecting their worlds and your worlds. That is how to produce peace. And if we fail to do what I just said, we're going to be in serious trouble. The cost of living is a symptom, and in the crisis is the evidence of our heading toward trouble. and the cost of living is not only crisis. There are going to be other crises in the future, because there have been crises in the past. COVID-19, we are still suffering from the cost of COVID-19. It's a crisis, it's a global pandemic, it's a global crisis, and we have suffered many things, including the world wars. We are now having war in the Middle East between Israel and Gaza, and let us pray for Israel and Gaza, for them to find peace and for them to obtain an opportunity to learn the humanitarian culture, valuing people over power and politics. And let us continue with this process. Most are the African origin, though some are European or Asian origin. Africa is the most multilingual continent in the world, like I said, and it is not rare for individuals to fluently speak not only multiple African languages, but also but also one or more European ones as well. And there are 4 major language families indigenous to Africa, and we have we're going to look at the different categories, the simplistic view of language families spoken in Africa, and the Afro-Asiatic languages, a language family of about 240 languages, and 285 million people are widespread throughout the Horn of Africa, North Africa, and the Sahel, and Southwest Asia. And when you talk about Afro-Asiatic, it means the mixture of Africa and Asia. And like I said, I believe when you see people looking like an Arab, who are neither black nor white, you see the Israelis, the Jewish people, who are neither white nor black, the North Sudanese, which are mainly referred to as Arab or Jewish people around the Middle East and the North Africa. These, I believe, are actually a result of a mixture between black people and white people, and intermarriage which occurred in the past, which produced a mixed race. We who are Arab and Jews across the globe, and in also Asia proper, like in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and other parts of the world where there are mixed races in or outside Africa. Then we have the Nilo-Saharan language family, consisting of more than 100 languages spoken by 30 million people, and in Chad, Ethiopia, Kenya, Nigeria, Sudan, South Sudan, Uganda, and northern Tanzania. You have the Niger-Congo language family, covering much of sub-Saharan Africa. In terms of number of languages, it is the largest language family in Africa and have one of the largest in the world. We talk about places like West Africa, Nigeria, and people like that. So we have also at the language segment the Khoisan language numbering about 50 and are spoken in southern Africa by approximately 400 people. And many of the Khoisan languages are endangered now. They are actually like endangered species. Their languages are being endangered because they themselves are actually getting fewer and fewer. And the fewer you are, the more endangered you become. So the Khoi and the San peoples are considered the original inhabitants of these parts of Africa. And who the people consider are original people actually go extinct because of violence. People who visit indigenous people, if they find wealth and opportunity and and territories, they tend to fight and overcome the indigenous people, and in the process they kill so many people. So when population reduces a form of violence, either through warfare, direct warfare, or indirect warfare, such as famine and creating famine, creating diseases, Like now we are talking about modern day biological weapon viruses, and that creates a lot of suspicion, especially when we seem not to really trust our leaders, within the state, within the government, and within industry. And when we have evidence of cultural failure, where we are valuing money and power, wealth and power more than humanity, then we begin to suspect everybody of doing something wrong, weaponizing even food, energy, weaponizing wealth, weaponizing weather. When it rains, it's probably a weapon. When it shines, it's probably a weapon. When it floods, it's probably a weapon. When you find you find pests and diseases, it's probably a weapon. So people are suspicious, and they are not to blame, because we have lost track of our culture, and now we need to go back to basics and begin to learn and relearn our cultural economy, respecting humanity, valuing humans over and above any other values. And I thank you for everybody who have watched this far. We have come a long way. We are doing very well. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't subscribed. Or share with family and friends. Because if you share with family and friends, then we expand the people, we expand the viewership. And I will be posting videos. I will be doing my best to produce more quality video. We are small. We are recent. We are only 10 months as a project. And like I said, we are growing, but very slowly. Following the end of colonialism, nearly all African countries adopted official languages that are originated outside the continent, although several countries also granted legal recognition to indigenous languages such as Swahili, Yoruba, Igbo, and Hausa. In numerous countries, English and French, African French, are used for communication in the public sphere, such as government, commerce, education, and media. Arabic, Portuguese, Afrikaans, and Spanish are examples of languages that trace their origin to outside of Africa, and that are used by millions of Africans today, both in the public and private sphere. Italian is spoken by some in former Italian colonies in Africa. German is spoken in Namibia, as it was a former German protectorate. In total, at least a fifth of Africans speak the former colonial languages. In the next video, we are going to look at the health condition of Africa. We are going to look at the prevalence of HIV/AIDS in Africa. We are going to look at the total population ages between 15 and 49, as actually reported by the World Bank. And I will be examining other features of what happens in Africa, the future of whatever else happens in Africa in terms of health. Thank you for watching this video. Remember, the cost of living is created by poverty, and poverty is created by capitalism for the many. But also the same capitalism creating poverty for the many population, over 90% of the population of the world. The same capitalism is creating immense wealth for the few, less than 15%, 20 and 15% of the population, who are actually multi-millionaires and multi-billionaires. And this state of affairs needs to be reversed, and we need also to learn our culture, valuing humanity first, over and above wealth and power. The government of the world, along with the big corporation and entrepreneurial leaders in the world, should work together globally, especially focusing on Africa, with the help of Africans and the entrepreneurs controlling corporation, big business corporation in Africa and around the world, to come together to rejuvenate the public sector, which is the only source of producing public services. And public service is the only source of eradicating poverty in the capitalist world. And we need to revisit our system of credit economies and credit financing, because they are shadowy, they are fake, they are creating more problems. People actually in debt, and they live like wealthy people, they have forgotten that they are actually victims of society, and they are actually living in poverty. And this should change. The credit system should be reformed. We need people to realize their statuses as being poor, the 95% of the population who works for living around the world. And if we change this, we begin the process of actually learning our culture and implementing financial and economic justice, and begin the process of eradicating poverty and eradicating situations such as the cost of living crisis. Thank you all for watching, and subscribe to my channel and support it in whatever way you can. Leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.